Hi there, my name is Dr. Manus, and today we're going to be covering consumer and social well-being. Let's jump in. The first thing we're going to cover today is ethical business is good business. And we're going to cover the ethical side of marketing. So what are business ethics? Well, these could be considered rules of conduct that guide actions in the marketplace, both from a consumer standpoint and from a business standpoint, because consumers, they need to have ethics, but marketers also need to have ethics as well in businesses. So whenever we think about ethics, we can think of these as standards which people in a culture are going to judge what is right, what is wrong, good versus bad, right? So there's been companies that we might consider as unethical, right? Can you think of some companies that have had unethical behavior here in recent years? I could think of one that with Volkswagen, they're a company that they had some ethical issues, and I encourage you to look up if you're not familiar with some of these things, some of these actions that maybe some companies have taken that are unethical. I encourage you to look up some examples. Unethical business behavior in Google would probably get you some examples from the news. And sometimes there are cultural differences in what is considered ethical. So in some cultures, it's okay to give gifts in exchange for getting business from a supplier or a customer. However, here in the United States, that would be considered bribery, right? And the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act forbids foreigners for giving gifts in exchange for business. And so while it may be okay to do that in some other countries, it's not okay for foreigners to come in and do that, or people to do that here in the United States. So whenever we're thinking about business ethics, a question may arise is, do marketers manipulate consumers? Well, if we think about our needs and our wants, this is something we covered in the introduction to consumer behavior. A need is that basic biological motive. It's something that it's required to live and function. However, a want is a way that society has taught us to satisfy that need. So we can satisfy our needs in different ways, right? For example, if we're talking about the need for hunger, right? We could make a sandwich at home. We could go to Subway. We could also hire a private chef to come in and make us that sandwich. We could also get a sandwich pre-made from the grocery store. There's lots of different ways we could think about this and how we could address this. So while we may have these needs, our wants represent the ways in which society teaches us to satisfy those different needs. And the objective of marketing is to create awareness that our needs exist, but they don't create those needs, right? Marketing, if we're like watching television, we may see a commercial for like cereal, for example. They may say, oh, well, I am actually kind of hungry and I did want some cereal, but they don't create those needs. I help you identify that you have a need. It could be the same way with like shoes. If we're thinking about shoes, you may see an advertisement for shoes, but you may not necessarily buy that particular shoe, but it may trigger something and say, hey, I do actually need a new pair of shoes, so I'm going to look and see what options I have available, or I'm going to always buy the same brand that I'd like to buy. It just prompts you to think about the different needs that you might have. So one example is you might have thirst might be a need, and a marketer could be Coca-Cola, right? So if you have a need for thirst, you could address that by drinking water. You could address that by drinking maybe a milk. You could address that by drinking juice. However, marketers like Coca-Cola, they use different advertisements to really try to hone in, help you think of that need, and try to convince you to use their product. There's 2 advertisements that I posted in your learning module, and I want you to watch those, pause the video, and watch those now. So we've thought about we saw those videos, right? You saw the Coca-Cola videos. They directly mention thirst in the video. Well, this indicates that products are designed to meet your existing needs. So you already have the need for thirst. It's biological, it's ingrained in you. And these marketers, what they do is they try to promote different aspects of the product to communicate, hey, this product is available, you should choose us over competitors. And these promotions, like an advertisement that you see, they're important sources of information. They help you in the pre-purchase stage because you see these different advertisements and you're able to choose between these different alternatives. And whenever we think about new products, right, so we already have these needs. Well, there's new products that come into the market every year. If marketers were actually manipulating consumers, all these products that are introduced every year, 95% of them wouldn't fail. That's a huge number. 95% of new products fail every year. So if marketers were able to manipulate consumers, there wouldn't be so many product failures in the market. So here's a few example, or another statistic is that new grocery store products, they fail between 70 to 80% whenever they're introduced. So you may see something on the shelf one year and you're like, man, I really like that, but a lot of other people, they don't like it. And so the product fails, they're not able to make it, and this happens all the time. So marketers are not able to manipulate consumers because if they could, they wouldn't have product failures, right? There wouldn't be all these product failures that are out there. They would just be able to convince consumers, hey, you need to buy my product and you're going to buy it. I'm manipulating you to purchase this. It doesn't happen. So here's a few examples of some product failures. One is the Heinz Easy Squirt. If you were born in the 90s or grew up in the 80s, 90s, you'll remember this Heinz Easy Squirt was a product that I remember it, and it did fail. It was kind of cool as a kid, but as an adult, you're kind of like, eh. They also had a Lifesaver soda. That was another product failure. I never tried the Lifesaver soda, but it's kind of interesting. There was also the new Coke. So I do have a video on this product failure that you can watch as part of to learn about this, and it's in the learning module. And there's also a Cheetos lip balm. So who would like a Cheetos lip balm? Only a Cheeto enthusiast would want a Cheeto lip balm, and I don't even think they would actually use it. They may just have it as kind of like a collector's item. So those are some products that have failed, and if they could, they would have not had those products fail, and they would still be in the market today if they could manipulate consumers. So marketers, just as the basic premise, marketers cannot manipulate consumers, and they don't. So the next key point in our lecture is marketers have an obligation to provide safe and functional products as part of their business activities. The reason why I have this as our background is because Roundup has been in the news recently, that there's been different television advertisements, online ads that say, if you were exposed to Roundup, you may have cancer and you could win in this, you could become part of the class action lawsuit. Now, Roundup has paid billions of dollars because consumers were exposed to their product and it did cause cancer. So these products, marketers and businesses have an obligation to not only provide safe but also functional products. So while Roundup may have been very effective, it may have been functional, it was not safe. And while a product may be safe to use, it may not be that functional, right? So it needs to be both safe and functional for it to be most effective as part of their business activities. So what can consumers do if a product really doesn't meet their standards, right? The quality isn't there, the functionality isn't there, it didn't work as intended, and maybe it's not safe, right? So consumers have a voice. They can talk to the business directly, right? They can tell the manager, they can tell, especially if it's like a local business, they could tell the owner. They could also privately tell their friends and family, right? So one of the ways in which a business may lose customers is you tell your friends, you tell your family, man, I had this really bad experience at this restaurant. The server was really rude, the food was terrible, or it may be that you tell them, oh, it's great. You could give them great feedback and you could encourage them this private word of mouth. Or you could use a third-party response. So the third-party response is you might involve like the Better Business Bureau to get involved in that, or you might have to involve a government agency. So I've done this whenever it's been like I've had issues with insurance companies. Oftentimes most states, they have a resource for consumers if they have been experiencing problems with their insurance company. They feel like they've been wronged by their insurance company. Your credit card company is also a great way to do a third-party response. Say, for example, like I had an experience with Walmart where I had a quality issue and I paid for it with a credit card. I was able to start a dispute through my credit card company to address the issue that I could get partial to a full refund from Walmart because of the issue that I had with them. So you could involve a third party. And whenever we think about going back to voice, because that's the background of our picture, you can also use your voice publicly through review websites like Google and Yelp. So one example that came about that consumers were able to actually do something, a consumer did something about, and it became national news was Wendy's and the thumb in the chili. You may remember this, you may not even be aware of it, but in the early 2000s, a woman claimed she had found a finger in her bowl of chili. Well, the restaurant, obviously, that was very significant for Wendy's. They became the butt of jokes on television, and sales dropped dramatically during this time. So they lost about $21 million in business, and they had to force layoffs, reduce hours. But what's interesting, and what you may not even be aware of, you may think that this was true, right? That there was a finger in the chili, which there was, but the woman that actually made this claim, she made fraudulent accusations. She actually put the thumb. She cut off the thumb from one of her friends, and she had to. She was sentenced. She was arrested, and it was found that she had also filed other lawsuits against different businesses to be able to try to get money out of people. So the Wendy's thing, while it became national news and a lot of people still think that the thumb and the chili was true, this woman tried to defraud the world by saying that, oh, this came from an employee, when actually she put the thumb in there herself. Other ways in which companies think about ethical behavior is through social marketing and corporate social responsibility. Social marketing encourages positive behavior and discourages negative activities, whereas corporate social responsibility is the process of encouraging organizations to make a positive impact on stakeholders. And cause marketing is a strategy that aligns businesses with a cause. So social marketing, we're going to see you encourage positive behaviors like increased literacy to discourage negative activities such as drunk driving. So JetBlue, they have the Soar with Reading program. Pampers, 1 pack equals 1 life-saving vaccine. Yoplait, they do save lids to save lives. Dawn, they have their pledge is to save wildlife. And then with Walgreens, they have the Red Nose Day that's become really popular, and they use that as a way to help fight children's poverty. The next key point that we're going to cover is consumer behavior impacts directly on major public policy issues that confront our society. So there are major policy issues relevant to consumer behavior. One is data privacy and identity theft. Every year, 15 million Americans become victims of identity theft, and there's different regulations that have come into place that help protect data privacy. So the General Data Protection Regulation, this has come into play here recently. There's also been changes to privacy laws as far as cookies. You may have seen that over the past year. And then also discussing market access. So these can be limited due to physical, mental, economic, or social barriers. And these issues can help inform public policy. So with disabilities, we also have what is called food deserts, media literacy, and then those that are functionally illiterate. So this is a map of food deserts and opportunity zones. You can see that throughout the United States, there's many areas that would be considered a food desert. And a food desert is where there is 33% of the population for urban areas, they live a mile away from a grocery store, and for rural areas, they live more than 10 miles away from a grocery store. So you might be from a rural area, and you might not have had a grocery store within 10 miles of you. I know that where I grew up, the county that I grew up, there is a small portion of that county that they don't have a grocery store within 10 miles of them. So that means it's harder to access food, especially good quality food, and hard to access affordable food. There's also what is constituted what would be an internet or an internet desert is what could be said. And these are areas where people have limited or no access to internet. And if we think about New Mexico in particular, that is an area that experiences a lot of internet deserts. And this is broken up by county in the United States. You can see there's lots of counties, even now, that they don't have access to internet. Lots of households don't have access to internet, and that's a problem for many consumers. So while we're continuing on with these major policy issues, we can think of sustainability and environmental stewardship. One thing is the triple bottom line that's been touted, which involves financial, social, and environmental aspects. We also can think of conscientious consumerism, and this is where a consumer is focusing not only on their personal health, but also the health of society as a whole and the environment. And what tends to be associated with some of these policy issues and consumer behavior is green marketing and greenwashing. So green marketing is this idea, this strategy that is to promote environmentally friendly products and stressing these different attributes whenever they advertise to a consumer. So this can be done in different ways. It could be in the form of how the product is packaged, right? I know that like Coca-Cola and some other plastic bottles, they may say like this bottle is made from 100% recyclable material, 100% recyclable plastic. Or there's been some companies that have come out with different water that it's 100% compostable, that you can actually just throw the water on the ground and it turns into compost, and it is degradable, and you don't have to worry about it ruining the environment. We also have what is called greenwashing, and this occurs when companies make false or exaggerated claims about how environmentally friendly their products are. So they may say that, oh yeah, my product is it's recycled, it does all these good things, but when in fact their processes that are used to make the product actually are causing harm to the environment. And so oftentimes companies will conduct greenwashing behavior where they make these exaggerated claims, or they say that, oh yeah, we're working on these different strategies, when in fact they haven't made much progress at all. The last thing we're going to talk about for this chapter, focusing on consumer and social well-being, is how consumer behavior can be harmful to both individuals and to society. And this picture really illustrates how different ways in which consumers can act that can really hurt other consumers in society. You may have experienced online bullying, cyberbullying, and it can have a really negative impact, not only for that individual, but also it can be toxic and be self-reinforcing, that really causes problems in our society. So with consumer behavior, there is a dark side, and we could think of this as like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where there are many good things that consumers do in the marketplace. However, there are many bad things that consumers could do in the marketplace if they so choose, right? There's addictive consumption, and this could be the product itself could be addictive, like cigarettes, gambling, social media, or it could be that our behavior, right, we're addicted to shopping. And so the way in which that manifests is we could be addicted to buying clothes. We could be addicted to buying secondhand goods. We could be addicted to buying shoes. So our addictive consumption can vary based on the individual, but it could have negative consequences for a consumer's well-being, right? And it also has potential negative implications for society, because smoking can also have an effect on the people around you, right? And so that's why they say, like at many buildings, public buildings, they say don't smoke within so many feet of the building, right? And so these addictive behaviors can also affect like your friends and family, right? If you have a gambling addiction, that could hurt your family, right? Because you may be spending all your family's discretionary income on gambling whenever you need to be using it to take care of your family's needs. So the same way could be like for social media. If you're addicted to social media, you could be spending more time on social media instead of spending time with your family members or friends. That is a more social activity that really could benefit you and your well-being. There's also illegal acquisition and product usage. So this could be in the form of counterfeiting, right? That is making a product appear to be what it's not. So like there's many knockoffs of like Rolex, many knockoffs of like Louis Vuitton, purses and handbags. So with these counterfeited goods, this can cause problems for the company, but because it devalues the product. And with serial wardrobing, this occurs where you purchase a piece of clothing, you wear it once and return it. Or you may purchase, this doesn't have to necessarily be with clothes, right? If we go beyond serial wardrobing, we may buy something for a particular use, right? We only need it for this one thing, we use it for that one thing, and then we return it. People do it all the time, and it happens quite a bit. Then we also have what's called anti-consumption, and that would be like graffiti. So someone defacing a public building or even a private building, that graffiti can be a dark side of how consumers act. I mentioned cyberbullying in the previous slide, but some other forms of the dark side of consumer behavior could be through illegal activities, like prostitution is one that really can be a negative aspect of consumer behavior that plays out in different areas. So this covers our lecture for consumer and social well-being. If you have questions about this or any other marketing topic, feel free to email me at kmanus@nmsu.edu. Thank you.